Welcome to Conversations on Resilient Leadership. I'm Jim de Vries, founder of Enhance International Group, and I'll be your host today. This podcast series is where we dive deep into the minds of leaders who have not only navigated uncertainty, but have emerged stronger and more innovative and more resilient. Whether you're a seasoned executive or emerging leader, each episode offers you unique access to the strategies and insights of top leaders who are redefining leadership in today's dynamic environment. Today, we have the privilege of sitting down with a remarkable leader, Jacquelyn Gernaey, CEO of SevenStar HR of the great state of New York, out there on the Long Island there. And Jackie, to those who know her, know that she's been a trailblazer for women. She started her leadership journey by being chosen to lead a microbiology laboratory at a 450-bed hospital in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. A little bit of corn out there, huh?
A lot of corn and pigs.
And pigs, there you go. 5 years later, she became the top salesperson in a 5-state Midwest territory of a startup and then helped start the marketing department. And then she left that company all to become the head of a 21-person marketing department in the division of an $8.5 billion pharmaceutical company, moving on up from the corn and pigs. Uh, Later, she became their first female division president. 5 years later, she helped them sell that division and then was the first female to purchase a franchise of coaching and peer advisory company. She grew this company and became one of the U.S. top tier owners. She started a nationwide company whose mission is to provide exceptional fractional HR services and continues to run and grow this company, SevenStar HR. And this is just a glimpse of Jackie's many accomplishments. Jackie has been recognized in many areas of her success. In one of those areas, she was selected as one of the elite group of U.S. leaders to serve on the Baldrige Board of Examiners. That's quite an honor to be on that. You got to be good if you're there. She was also named the world's greatest business mentor. She's published. She has a book. Jackie, your book name?
Create the business breakthrough you want.
There you go. Everybody pick up a copy of that and get some great insights. And I can personally attest that Jackie, as I've known her over these last couple of years, she's par one integrity, dedicated, open, honest, frank. What she focuses on is to help everyone enrich themselves and enrich everyone around them. I think that's really something special about Jackie. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jackie to the podcast. Jackie.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me, Jim. I appreciate it.
So, Jackie, we'll get right into it on what leadership means to you. What does it? What are the core values or core things you think about from a leadership perspective?
Well, leadership, is broken down into lead. That's the first part of it. But I think it's more than just leading. I mean, you can be you can lead something, without being a leader, I guess. And so to me, it's really to build other people up is what I think leadership is, to take the raw flesh that you're giving of human beings and get them moving all in the same direction, building them up to do that. That's leadership to me.
A bit of an orchestrator, so to speak.
Yeah, you're directing this orchestra, yes, and
So,
getting everyone to play together.
so what inspired you to become a leader from where you started?
I had kind of an interesting start. You talked about the being head of a microbiology company, and I had a baby, and I was working part-time for this company, and they lost their microbiology leader, and I they interviewed everybody for the new position. I was one of them, and I got the position. And so it was like, okay, now I'm a leader. But one of the very good things that I didn't realize it at the time is this hospital put me through a 36-hour leadership development program. And that really set the stage for me in what a leader is supposed to do, how to do it, what to be looking for and thinking, like when you bring in a new employee, remember it's like they have put on bug glasses with all the facets, and that's what they're looking out at when they walk in. No matter how good they were in their previous position, they can't figure anything out yet when they start. And keeping that in mind so that you do build them up over time.
So kind of building on that theme, curious on how, when you bring in somebody, how do you give them enough coaching as a leader, but not too much so that it takes away. There's a fine line there when you bring in employees and setting them up for success. Can you
So
share any best
yeah,
practices there?
I have a process that I use because I am a process person. And that process includes putting down a list of tasks, everything and anything for that position. And it's built upon by the person as they come in because, you just think you know everything that they're going to have to do. But all of a sudden it's like, how did they, what? So, and then I make 3 columns. They watched us, we watched them, and they're checked out. And I think that's really important, especially in an admin role. For example, I'm not doing all of the training, and I might walk in and say, I have 2 options. I can walk in and say, can you do whatever that is? Or I can say, can I take a look at your training checklist? Oh, you haven't been taught how to do that yet. So don't make them feel like they're dumb because I'm asking them to do something as the top person and they haven't been trained on it yet. So, that can cause some panic. The other thing is it's really important. If you put week 1 goals, I usually like a 6-month plan for them. And if you put week 1 goals and then week 2, 3, and 4 goals, or maybe day 1 and then 5 days, and however you're going to build it up, then you need to follow up with them and see how they are doing. Have they met the goals of that week, that day, that month, whatever, however you build it? And I think that's really important for a couple reasons. While I'm big on the hiring process, the reality is nobody's perfect. And sometimes you may make a mistake in hiring. And if they can't do and get the goals done day 1 through 5, week 2 through 4, then I think you seriously need to decide whether they need to continue to be in your organization. I have this thing that I say businesses often hire too quickly, don't do background checks, don't do assessments, don't benchmark the job as to what the behaviors and soft skills are that it needs. And then they fire too quick and too slowly. If at a month you're like, yeah, this isn't working, then they need to go then. What are you holding off for?
Hmm. Yeah, that trial basis, 30 days is so critical,
Yeah,
isn't it?
well, whenever it is that you start realizing that I don't care if it's week one,
Yeah.
we use Wonderlic, and one of our clients said to me, Jackie, he was hiring an engineer. I'm so desperate that I know the Wonderlic said he's in the eighth percentile,
Ooh,
eighth percentile,
wow.
but I have to have somebody. Now, Wonderlic is intelligence based on how quickly you can learn. And so we brought him in, and at the end of week one, he fired him. Why? Because he told him 3 times trying to teach him how to do this one thing, and the guy didn't get it.
You didn't get it. Yeah.
He didn't get it. Time to go, right? So whenever that is, it's leadership is more than just being a nice person, cuddling, rocking the employees, whatever that is. It's really making the decision. Did I make a mistake before? And is this where we're heading? Is this person going to help me achieve my vision of the company going forward or not? And then
So,
adjusting and moving on.
so taking us back to when you became that first leader, when did you really say, this is where I fit, it felt right that you were a leader?
Well, it was interesting because one of the reasons the other person was gone was the hospital was going to be audited by JCAH, Joint Commission on American Hospitals. I don't know,
Mhm.
but they were going to be audited. And this person didn't have one procedure, not one process,
Wow.
nothing was in place, right? And so it was when I first decided that I was a leader was when I was able to mobilize the people in the department, even though I knew less than all of them did on microbiology. I mean, I had had training years before, but I hadn't been in the trenches. I didn't know this from that. And I was able to mobilize them and also become an adjunct professor teaching microbiology. And here's like, oh my gosh, the Krebs cycle.
Hmm.
Who knew I was going to be going back to chemistry days and teaching the Krebs cycle, for heaven's sakes? What an awful thing. No one should be teaching the Krebs cycle. But I think that's what it was. And when one of my best friends that was in that department that I had traveled in Europe got mad at me, hit me with her purse, hit me with her purse, and I fired her. You have to, you know,
Yeah.
it's 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 the company over personal stuff, right? It's got to be.
Oh, very interesting stories. So when you're going through that journey, you had some maybe two or three key turning points, where
Mm-hmm.
you really, embraced that leadership as you went up that journey, to the top to become that CEO position. Are there any key moments and reflection that if you'd gone the other way, what would have happened?
Well, it's funny because I called to complain to a company about their product that I was using in the microbiology laboratory. And I got a call from the president of the company, and he said, well, the reason nobody's gotten back to you is we terminated the sales rep. And I said, you should hire me. Those exact words. And he said, "Don't be kidding. I'm looking for someone." And I said, "I am not kidding." And flew out to New Jersey and got the position. And that changed my hospital. And I don't think I had ever told you I was in the process of getting a master's degree in hospital management. So I had taken some courses, but all of that went out the window, right? Because what did I do? I left the hospital, and went into corporate. It was kind of a startup. And so that was one of the things that kind of started me in a different direction. I then, while I was a sales rep, there was a company conference, I guess. And this company that I was with, like you, they all wore blue blazers. They all had yellow ties, or maybe red, so really square, you know. And I happened to be sitting at the table one night during that conference, and it was a French restaurant, and oh my gosh, it was taking forever to get the food. I was so tired that I was just near tears. I went into the bathroom to wash my face off because I was so tired. And there's the next, unbeknownst to him, the top sales rep at that time was making passes at all of the women at the table. And sitting at that table was the executive vice president of human resources. Now, what do you think might have happened? He did not get that job. He did not get the job. And because I happened to live in the same state, and he was impressed with me sitting at the table, not eating and not drinking because I couldn't drink and keep standing up, or sitting up. It was so awful. But I ended up getting a job, the next corporate level job, in the marketing department at this. He said, "Can you do marketing?" Of course I can. What's marketing? I didn't know what marketing was at that time from a corporate standpoint, but off I went. And so that was my rise to the marketing department, and there you go.
I think those are great lessons because, boy, you really jumped over many hurdles and took many chances to take something that you wanted, because obviously you had an end vision of where you wanted to end up, and you said, I need to go through these steps to get there.
It was funny. This was a distribution company, and I went to someone that had led, because I had two options. The head of HR wanted me to take one job. He wanted me to be actually head of sales for the whole sales region. And the head of the president of the company wanted me out to do marketing. So I said, look at this. I have two job options.
Nice.
How can I have to figure out which way I want to kind of push this discussion. And so I went to talk to one of the managers of that Chicago region, and he said, well, if you're in a distribution company, you should take the regional manager position, but you're not. You're in the company that is the supplying company, the manufacturing company. You should take the marketing position. So I said, okay. And I pushed to get the marketing job. And the president of the company won, and out I went, and they killed me. When I left, they had to hire 6 people to replace me. It was just insane. But I then went to the next company thinking I was interviewing for one job, and ended up getting the director of marketing job. And there you go.
So I hear some lessons of if you the bigger risks you take, the more reward you get.
Yeah, and do your homework. I decided here I was, I could stay secure in Chicago. That's where I was living. Or I could pick up and move to New Jersey with my daughter. What's New Jersey? Had no idea. I know New York, but I'd never even hardly heard of New Jersey, right? Let alone having to live there. So do some research on what it is and set a path. I mean, work hard, work hard. That's really important because I never got a job that I knew how to do. Never.
Well, that's a
So
true leader
you
because,
got to figure it out.
yeah, as a leader, you don't need to know the details of the job. You need to know how to lead people. That's a
Exactly.
common trait that many people often overlook, that you don't need to have all the direct answers. You just need to be able to, you know, lead the people to get them to do the answer, provide the answer.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were set to be a leader and you want to be a leader. You enjoy being a leader. So
Mhm.
why do you enjoy being a leader so much? Do you ever thought about it that way?
I think the thing that I really like is the big picture thinking. I am not, I mean, I don't have any problem figuring out which way we're going to go by doing some of the work myself. That doesn't bother me, but not for an ever and ever. It's when you figure it out, find someone else to do that piece of it. And I've had that even in the SevenStar where, I decided what I was going to do, how we were going to market, and then was extremely successful in bringing on channel partners for us. And then I was not nurturing the channel partners enough. Why? I didn't have time. So I
Mm-hmm.
brought in someone else to do that who is extremely good at it and everybody loves him.
Mm-hmm.
So surround yourself with good people and delegate. It's
Right.
really important.
That's excellent advice. So that was the good. Now, what are some of the greatest challenges you've had as a leader?
So I think when I was president of the microbiology manufacturing company, we were a division of this pharmaceutical company, and they wanted us to produce 22% income before tax. Now, that's a pharmaceutical level. We were a diagnostic company. There was just no way. And for a while, you do everything you can. You're cutting expenses. You're letting people go. You're doing all you can to feed this beast called the 22% income before tax. And I finally said to them, yeah, no more. We're not going to do it. And they said, well, you have to. And I said, no, I don't. And they said, well, what are we going to do? I said, you're going to sell the division because it doesn't fit in your model. And they said, well, we don't have anybody to do that. And I said, okay, I'll sell the division. Nothing like selling yourself out of a job, But that's what I did. We went through 2 rounds. We went through one round of being looked at, and all of them digging through this company. And unfortunately, somewhere along the line where this company was, there had been a manufacturer of circuit boards, and they had washed all the circuit boards with some god blessed awful drug. I mean, not drug, chemical. And it was in the water. It was in the water table. And we had done a good thing. We had somebody had spilled a can of oil. And so we went through the whole process, we cleaned it up. It was really nothing. We drilled the wells. We tested for that oil, nothing, all good. But they went down and tested the water in the process of doing their due diligence. And lo and behold, the water had this in the water and this chemical. And so that fell through. So the next one we got was going to be in St. Louis. And so that was a little more difficult. You don't know Long Island. It is 45% Italian Catholic and 45% Jewish. And both of those stay close to mama. You don't leave mama, So unlike me running to New Jersey, no, this wasn't going to work. And they did buy the division, and they couldn't get people to move. They offered me a position in Lyon, France, or St. Louis. And our daughter had just started high school at that time. And it was 2 months into her high school year. And she said to us, "You promised when I started high school, there was going to be no more of this moving around." And we said, "Okay, you're right." And I did not take either of those positions because I felt I had to.
That's commitment.
Made a commitment.
Yeah.
I had to honor it. So
so
that was it. And that's why I started my own business, bought a franchise, and then built that up and became one of the top people. And SevenStar was kind of serendipity. One of my coachees said to me, "Jackie, I know you're here to teach me how to fish, but when it comes to hiring in HR, I want you to catch the fish, fry it in the pan, and feed it to me. I am not going to learn anything about HR and hiring." And the light bulb went off in my head, and I said, wonder if other people feel that way. And lo and behold, the birth of SevenStar HR, with effective hiring as one of our branded services.
So you are a trailblazer. Before they even knew the word fractional, you had already created and perfected it.
I had.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. With that, I'm going to switch a little bit direction into the state of the economy, apolitical. We won't get into the politics here, but where the economy is going and how it's affecting your sector that you focus on, the small businesses, and what you see in the future for that sector.
Well, I still coach these small businesses, and then I have the HR. So I'm going to talk separately about each of them, because even though you say apolitical, you have to do a SWOT analysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my business owners that I'm coaching are looking at this and saying, okay, if we take each candidate without discussing who's who, at their word, we might have a lot more tariffs. We might have a lot more taxes or less taxes, so they try to figure out how do I plan for next year?
Yeah.
How do I do that? And so this is always this way in an election year when it's two different candidates, and the candidates right now are pretty close in the running. So they're not saying, oh, shoo, this one's in, or oh, shoo, that one's going to be in. Nobody can quite know for sure, right? So that's that side, and it is difficult, and making contingencies for each scenario is really important for a leader to do in a situation where you just don't have any control. That of what I would call a threat, because it could be this way, it could be this way, and you've got to put together contingencies. Then when we look at the HR company, it's interesting because right now we're in a Democratic presidential and situation, and with that are a lot more laws focused on protecting workers. And with those laws mean that the business owners are just trying to keep their nose above the water to be compliant, or can't figure it out, or don't have the time to deal with it, right? So right now our sales have gone way up because of that economy. Now, let's say that the Democrats, the Republicans become win in this election. What's going to happen? All of those laws are going to get undone. There are going to be all sorts of things. So I still have all of that work to do to unwind what we've wound up right this time. So I do say that in the fractional HR world, the government is one of my best sales people.
As long as they can't make a decision, it helps
Well,
them.
it moves back and forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And if it changes every 4 years, it takes them along. There are so many parts of the government that are involved with employees. Really unbelievable. And NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, I thought was only involved with unions, but I have learned that is not the case. And so they're enacting things for non-union companies as well. So, it's interesting. Every day I read, one of the things I read is a listserv from labor attorneys that talks about the new laws that are coming out in all these states, So it's because then we have to make changes and we have to know what's going on.
Yeah, well, that's a lot to take in with all those new laws. It's good, it's bad, you can look at it different ways.
It's a lot of commotion one way or the other.
Yeah. So, from an economy, perspective, how are businesses doing now, and how do they predict to be doing next year? There's some charts I've seen with GDP decreasing, typical after an election year, of dropping below 2. What are you seeing? What are folks saying out there on their hiring of people? Do they see people holding off on hiring until the election?
Yeah,
Holding off
hiring
on,
slows down in an election year, Jim, especially if it's as contentious as this year is. They're not sure what's going to happen, so they either way, because in this, even though we've got a Democratic president, it's not him that's running for
yeah,
election. So we've got
right,
two new candidates.
yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, we have one new candidate and one old candidate that is rerunning, right? And they're listening to the rhetoric. The commercials. I I apologize to everyone who's in a swing state. I'm sorry you have to listen to all
Yeah,
these
I'm in a
commercials.
swing state.
You're in a swing state.
I
So
basically I tune out the commercials.
there you go.
It's too
Well,
much.
I like to look at them just because I find it all very interesting. I don't, but not over and over and over again. Just one time, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think that, you know, we generally after election year, the overall GDP contracts a bit. After the end of the year, it detracts. Now the question is, going through next year, a lot of there's a lot of cash on hand, so to speak, that people have staved off because of high interest rates. So interest rates are still high. They're starting to come down, but there's a group of companies that are kind of cash rich, so to speak,
Mhm.
that are playing this and playing the market and doing okay. And then there's other businesses that weren't able to get over the hump to achieve that level of security from a financial perspective. And and we are going to go into a dip. We all know that. So I guess I'm just asking from what you've heard, these business owners that you're working with, how are you working with them to build risk mitigation plans on how to deal with what is going to happen? Are most of them prepared? Is that what you guys, one of the areas you focus on?
Yeah, in the us personally in the hiring is much lower this year than it was. We usually run about 50-50, and I'd say we're down 10% in the hiring. We happen to be up maybe 65 to 65% in the HR consulting. But
Hmm.
what all we can do is we work with our employees, not in the SevenStar in the consult coaching, to put together a plan for this next year. What is it going to look like? What are the contingencies that you can have? Is there a way you can tighten your belt now? Look for waste now instead of waiting until you're in the midst of it. One of the things that happens, of course, when the economy contracts is that, especially I see this in small business, they really start looking for where they can cut. What can they cut out?
Hmm.
And anything from, oh, I'm being charged $10 a month for this app that I don't even, what is it? I don't
Yeah.
remember. So really digging in to try to clean out. And in the good times, that doesn't get looked at. So that's why I'm saying now, let's look now. Let's get you at least a quarter under your belt of reduced expenses, as well as get a plan for how are you going to are you going to make a change in how you market? How are you going to get to people? And understanding from them is that because of insecurity, people don't make decisions as quickly or sometimes at all, even in the small business world. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no decision is a decision, right?
it is a decision. Not now is the decision. I'm
Yeah,
not
right.
doing it now,
But
whatever.
but then we know that it's to me, especially in small companies, this is a question I've always pondered over the years, working myself in small companies, and I find that when you start your company, you're willing to take risks to grow. But once you get to a happy place, whatever that is, the size, you stop growing and you tend to sit back and you don't have the growth anymore. And then once you turn that off, in your psyche and in your folks, because the leader of the company is who sets the tone, you tend to plateau in performance, even though you have the capabilities of being double, triple the size you are. How do you coach companies through that and make them realize that they need to take risks in order to grow again and to put the growth hat back on?
So one of the things for me that I have the benefit of is my coachees also are in a peer board of directors group. And I can kind of throw that out to the peer board and say, what are your thoughts about this? And a lot of people, me included, I've been through ups and downs in the economy. If it's not up, it's down. If it's not down, it's up.
There's
You
always
know,
an excuse, right?
you can't. You just have to keep working,
Mm.
and if it's a down economy, that is the time you've got to market like mad.
Yeah.
You've got to market, because what happens is other people stop marketing. And if you, it clears the deck. And so you can stand out a great deal in a down economy if you just keep marketing. 2009 first quarter, that was, it was horrible,
It
right?
was a horrible
The
time.
fourth quarter of 2008, and it was our best year. We signed up more clients. Why? We kept marketing. That's number one. Number two, they realized they thought they knew what they were doing, but they realized they didn't know what they were doing. So they needed to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, it just amazes me that these companies I see it a lot with my 60 partners, that some of them do very well on downturns.
Mm-hmm.
And that's generally where they grow the most. And then when the economy is really, really strong, they actually run out of business
Mm-hmm.
because people aren't as hungry to look for.
Or they think they've got it. I've
Yeah.
got it. I know what I'm doing. I'm heading down the right path. Why? How do I know? My sales are going up.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with them. It's the economy. It's
Exactly.
just the growth of the economy. There's a bigger engine going on in the background that's driving things.
Exactly. So
And people,
they're
yeah,
wrong.
yeah, I think folks that think that we control the economy and the economics, that it is such a huge engine. It's really tough. And now that the US is in really a service economy, we don't make a lot of things in the US. Our manufacturing has cut in half since 2010. So we don't make hardly anything anymore. 60%, 67, 60 some percent, 63%, I think I heard, is service is that we sell in
That's
America.
very possible. I do have one peer board that's manufacturing and distribution. So I'm lucky to have that because I do get to see. But some of the manufacturing one is being made in China, and another one I think is Vietnam.
Mhm.
They're doing millions of dollars of socks, and the other one is selling hand painted children's furniture, millions and millions of dollars. So, but still, you know, and supply chain has been such a big mess. They're still recovering, even though the supply chain is fixed, kind of. What happened is many of them, smaller companies, for fear of not having, the product was being sold on the internet, and they needed the product, right? So they brought in at an extremely high priced per load, per shipload, 14,000. It went 21,000. Sometimes it would go up to per load, and then it dropped to 2.5 because they had so much inventory that nobody was buying from China. And so there's still, then the big companies, they say, all right, we're just going to dump the product into the marketplace, cut it to nothing. And they've got all this high priced inventory, and they can't really afford to do that dumping. Yeah, it's very interesting that manufacturing for small business is probably dealing with supply chain probably more interesting for me than dealing with service businesses.
Sure. Yeah. I spent a lot of time in the supply chain, which you just described as the bullwhip effect, which we predicted.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, we predicted that, on the onset of the pandemic.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
We had webinars on the bullwhip effects before it occurred, and it happened. It's for the most part settled, but because of the wars in the Middle East, there's a lot of contraction and problems in the supply chain.
Yep.
And plus China and the tariffs, as you mentioned earlier, the tariffs are causing hyper activity.
We may have more tariff. Republicans get in, supposedly.
Supposedly, we don't know.
We don't know.
But,
again, planning, trying to guess what's going to happen.
I think
all you can do.
Yeah, I think most companies, if they can, they're trying to figure out to nearshore or onshore.
Absolutely.
To mitigate the risks.
Yep.
So if you're in Vietnam, you're probably okay. But if you're in China, the nearshoring or onshoring is the best thing. And what we're promoting with Enhanced International Group is that the factory of the future is now. We can go straight to Industry 5.0 in a new facility. We don't have to, or we could take your current facility and move it from Industry 1 or 2.0, which most of America is, up to 5.0, and you can get your ROI there. So
that's a very good thing that EIG has that capability. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I've aligned with you guys, is being able to allow access to people that can help at a higher level. I mean, I am not a supply chain expert. Never thought to be, never wanted to be, but I've heard more about supply chain the last few years than I ever wanted to know.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we always lamented that nobody heard of supply chain and appreciate the field. Now we got what we wished for. Everybody can talk about it, but to your point, to really understand the intricacies of supply chain, it's a lifetime of learning, because it is, as you mentioned, incredibly complex.
Yeah.
Supply chain is the heartbeat of the organization. I mean, it's your manufacturing, it's your supplying, it's your delivering, it's your customers, it's everything. It's like everything that holds everything together from cradle to grave.
Yep.
Is your supply chain. It's called supply chain, but it's really not focused on supply. It's focused on that end to end, as you mentioned.
Yep.
So Jackie, any closing thoughts about the economy? Any predictions or
Jim, if I could predict, I would not need to work at all anymore.
Do you need to work? I think you work.
I probably don't need to work, but regardless, no, I can't. I cannot. I can see two paths depending on who gets elected.
Um,
and they're very different. So there you go.
yeah, we'll take it on, live through it, and
That's all we can do.
we're still the
We
number
all,
one.
each have one vote. That's all we
We
can
each have
do.
one vote. Everybody has a vote for the path that they want to take, and
Exactly.
you can go to sleep with your conscience that you voted for what you wanted
Wanted and
and you got what you deserve, so to speak.
there you
For
go.
better or worse, you know.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, it was fun, Jackie, as always, talking with you and learning from you. What a journey you've had in your life, taking chances and turning, really nothing into everything.
And having fun. What fun building business. It's so fun.
Yeah, fantastic story. And I'm sure many more continued success and more recognition for all the great things that you do for everybody that has the pleasure of meeting you.
Well, thanks for having me, Jim.
Thank you.